This is Bill Osborne, City Manager in Douglasville. On this edition of On the Agenda, we'll be talking about the proposed new Public Safety and Municipal Court building. During the final part of this program, I'll be speaking with Police Chief Joe Wisner. But before I talk with the Chief, let me give you a little bit of background information on this project. I'll be back to talk about that in just a minute, so stay tuned for On the Agenda. This edition of On the Agenda will serve as an introduction to what will be several city TV programs over the next 3.5 months regarding the planned Public Safety and Municipal Court building. This is a very important project that the city is undertaking. Later in this program and then next month, I'll have Police Chief Joe Wisner as my guest. I'm sure the Chief also will be devoting this topic of the new police building on one of his own programs on City TV. Mayor Mickey Thompson, members of the City Council, Police Chief Wisner, myself, members of the Police Department, feel like it's very important for you, our viewers, the voters, the citizens, the business of Douglasville, to have a good understanding of the needs for this new facility and what's being proposed to be located in this new facility and how it will make public safety services in Douglasville over the next 2 decades be delivered better, and that will be, of course, to the benefit of all of our citizens. Now, currently our police department is fragmented geographically. They're located in several buildings in the downtown area. This, of course, creates a lot of problems in terms of coordination, supervision, and also citizens who have business with the police department may find they need to go to one or more, to a couple of buildings perhaps on one trip. And this will be, of course, one way of providing the facilities that will be beneficial, I think, to everybody. And what we want to do today is talk a little bit about this project, and later in the program I'll be visiting with Chief Wisner on it. But when I became city manager some 18 years ago, and Chief Wisner already had been chief for several years, everything was in one building, the police station there at the corner of Duncan and Church Street. And I mean everything was in that building. We had a small jail to temporarily house prisoners. Municipal court was actually held in the same room that was the squad room for the police department. Now the mayor and city council down through the years have responded to the needs for more space. As the city has grown, we've needed to expand the police department, made a number of improvements dealing with our computer operations, our records, and in other words, we've needed more space. And what took place was acquiring existing buildings in the downtown area. And while this did deal with our space needs, there were a couple of inherent problems. Of course, none of these buildings had been designed with public safety in mind. So from a security standpoint, both for our officers and for the public who might be dealing with the police department, we really didn't have the security we needed. And as you can imagine, with the chief and his command staff trying to supervise personnel that are physically located in, I think at this time, 7 different buildings in downtown, that made it a very difficult and challenging assignment. And so we've been working to try to deal with that issue, and that's what we want to talk about today. Chief Wisner and his officers always have expressed appreciation to the mayor and the city council for the additional space, but they have continued to point out that it really was not the type of space we needed to have a most effective operation in our police department. And I frankly think that most of our citizens and business owners, property owners in the city of Douglasville will agree with that statement. Some months ago, Chief Wisner approached the mayor, the city council, and myself, and he presented this proposal. He said that he would provide the funds for a study to do a needs assessment of what the Douglasville Police Department had need of from a space standpoint currently and for the next 20 years. And the mayor and city council did agree to do this. As a result, the city council awarded a contract to the facility group, which is a firm up in Cobb County that has had a lot of experience in designing and building law enforcement and correctional facilities. Now, the funds that Chief Wisnett used or made available for this needs assessment are drug funds. And these funds basically come as a result of law enforcement activity that makes seizures of illegal drugs from those who are involved in illegal drug activities, and also from the sale of certain assets, such as vehicles, that have been seized in different public safety activities trying to deal with the drug problem. And the law provides that court decisions or agreements are made so that different law enforcement agencies have the authority on how these funds are to be spent. Locally, that means the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Douglas County Police Department, the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. So when we talk about drug funds or confiscated asset funds, in Douglasville, we're talking about funds that are under the direction of the police chief. And Chief Wisnett did make funds available to do the needs assessment. And when the needs assessment was in the process of being prepared, the city government, Chief Wisnett, Mayor Thompson, and myself, we looked high and low in the downtown area for what might be a good site on which to build the new public safety and municipal court building. And frankly, we could not find a large enough vacant site that really would meet this need. And we came back and we talked with the mayor and city council, and we all concluded that what we needed to do was to find a different site outside of the downtown area. And the city council made that decision, and at the same time they made the decision that we want to keep a strong public safety presence in downtown Douglasville. And so our plans that we have announced to local residents and businesses in the downtown area, that when the police department does move out of the downtown area in terms of the main facility, we'll keep a police precinct in the current police station so that we can maintain those services in the downtown area. We found what we think is a very good site, and frankly we feel like it was a very reasonable price. This is located south of I-20 on the west side of Fairburn Road, and we did acquire that property. If you're wanting to know exactly where this site is, if you're going south on Highway 92, Fairburn Road, and as you start up the first hill, over on the right, Hillside Drive is the street that goes back to the bowling alley, and we're talking about that vacant piece of land just to the north of Hillside Drive. And we hope that this will be the site of our new station within the next 2 years. That site has room enough to deal with our current needs and our projected needs for the next 20 years, and still we would have some additional acreage. The needs assessment has said that we need a facility of about 60,000 square feet, and then we're talking about ancillary facilities on the property that would include an evidence and archives building, a car wash, space for our K-9 Corps, and separate parking for public and office personnel, police department personnel. Now, after the mayor and council had decided that that was the direction in which we would move, we had to talk about who we would hire to work with us on the design and what process we would follow. And the city council, after some discussion, decided to go with the design-build concept. By this we mean that we select a firm to be responsible for the design of the building and then to be responsible for the construction of that building. And at the end of the process we went through, the highest ranked firm was the facility group, and subsequently the city council did contract with the facility group, and they now are preparing a preliminary plan on the public safety and municipal court building. Now, although our contract with the facility group is design build, We do have in that contract the ability, once we get the preliminary plan, if we look at it or for any reason we wish to terminate our agreement with the facility group, we will be able to do that at no penalty for the city. Now, when we did the request for proposals that the facility group and 3 other firms responded to, we made it clear that we would be selecting the firm who scored the highest in a competitive competition, and that if for any reason we did not use the services of the highest ranked firm, we would automatically go to the firm who scored the second highest in the competition. Now, I'm saying this because as we tape this edition of On the Agenda, which is the second week of May, the spotlight on the facility group in recent weeks certainly has not been positive. I don't intend in this program to comment on the legal problems that they have had in Mississippi, what may happen with that. By the time this program is, you view it, things may have changed or perhaps they haven't. But I do want to make 2 things very clear to the residents and business in the city of Douglasville. Once the preliminary plans have been completed and the first phase of our contract with the facility group has been completed, we'll take a close look to see where the facility group is at that time concerning legal issues. We also will be taking a close look at what we consider to be the product that they have produced, namely the completed preliminary plans. The second point is that the facility group has done a good job for Douglasville in the past. Facility group built Fire Station number 10 on Church Street in downtown Douglasville, which won a statewide award for that type of facility being built in a downtown area. When our elected officials did interviews with all 4 firms and did an objective scoring, the facility group was the highest among the 4 firms. Let me tell you a little bit about that selection process. Our Chief Assistant City Attorney, Susan Littlefield, prepared a request for proposals, and we provided this to firms that generally bid on such projects. We did advertising on it. It was on our website. We had a number of inquiries, ended up with 4 proposals. We arranged one night in which there were separate consecutive interviews of representatives from each of those 4 firms with the mayor and the members of the city council. Each firm was given 40 minutes to present whatever it wanted to present, distribute whatever materials it wished to distribute, decide how much time was spent on presentation, how much time was on question and answer discussion. And so these were held. And after each separate interview, the elected officials had their own scoring sheets, and they ranked or they scored that particular firm on 6 categories. Now, they had 2 copies of a scoring sheet for each of these 4 firms. One scoring sheet we asked, keep it for your own records. The other scoring sheet, which did not have any names on it, they turned in to Ms. Littlefield, our Chief Assistant City Attorney. And she took those forms and later tabulated all of that data. And we were looking at ranking or rating these 4 firms on 6 categories, which included qualifications and capabilities, experience and success with similar projects, qualifications of the key project personnel, the project approach, and project controls and techniques. And when we met 2 weeks later, staff, myself, I asked the mayor and members of the city council if they wanted to have more discussion on how they had already ranked these 4 firms. They didn't know what the rankings were at that time, or whether they wanted to have additional discussion. And unanimously, the elected officials said they were comfortable with the rankings that individually they had done 2 weeks earlier. After that, Ms. Littlefield provided them the results of their scoring. And basically, the facility group scored the highest at 69.2. Next was the Ordner Construction Company at 56.5, in other words, about 14 points lower. Third was Turner Construction Company at 55.6, so very close 3rd. And fourth was the Conling Company at 51.5. And subsequently, the City Council voted to select the facility group for this project. A few days later was when we became aware for the first time of some of the facilities group's legal problems in Mississippi. And we will be following that closely so a decision can be made after the preliminary plans are completed around the 1st of July as to how we proceed. When we come back, I'll be talking with our Finance Director, Karen Callan, concerning the financing for this project. So I hope you will stay tuned. With me is City Finance Director Karen Callan. I've asked her to make a brief visit on the agenda today as we talk about the financing for the planned Public Safety and Municipal Court building. This project we estimate will cost approximately $17 million. That's not including land costs because, as I mentioned earlier in the program, the city had already moved to acquire the property. Police Chief Wisnett has said that over the period of 20 years that the police department will provide some $5 million in drug funds. Remember, we talked about drug funds, confiscated asset funds. Chief said he would provide that $5 million. That means that there's about $12 million that we need to provide from another source. And the City Council has taken steps to call for a general obligation bond issue referendum, which will be on Tuesday, September 16th, to look at acquiring the other $12 million. Karen, tell us about this referendum. What will happen after September 16th, because we believe it's going to be approved by the voters.
All right, once the voters approve to go ahead and go forward with this bond issue, we will use the firm Morgan Keegan to handle the financing of issuing the bonds, going out to the bond markets and getting the city the best possible interest rate that there is. It will be tax exempt and very advantageous to bondholder or people who are looking to invest in bonds.
Okay. Now, of course, the bonds that we get, we have to repay. And for our taxpayers, property taxpayers, what will this mean in terms of their millage rate?
The millage rate would increase approximately 0.85. Of course, that depends on the total value of the tax digest and how it comes in every year, as well as the final interest rate that we receive on the bonds.
Okay. So we're talking about 0.85 mils, so less than 1 mil. Now, if our viewers, if your house has an appraised value of $150,000, what would this mean in terms of an increase on your property taxes?
Currently, it would mean an increase of $51 a year.
Okay, so that's less than $1 a week.
Yes.
So
yes.
You can't even get a small cup of coffee at a convenience store for that amount. But suppose your property has an appraised value of $250,000. What would that mean to you?
We're looking at an annual increase of $85 a year annually for a $250,000 house. Okay,
and my calculations that I'd done before, that's $1.65. So that's about the price of a medium-sized soft drink if you were to go to by most stores and pick up one. Now, suppose you're in an older house, a smaller house, and your appraised value is $75,000. What does that mean?
$25.50 annually for a $75,000 home.
Well, that's only about 50 cents a week.
Right.
So, so that's what we'd be looking at in terms of the increase in property taxes if the voters on September 16th were to approve this general obligation bond issue for what we feel is a much needed facility. Now, when would that increase show up on somebody's tax bill?
That increase would show up in the November 09, calendar year 09 tax bill. So not this current year, but the next year. Okay, so if we approve the GO bond issue in September of 08, then when the tax bills go out in the fall of 09 is when we would start seeing that increase.
Well, appreciate you stopping by for a brief visit today. We're going to have you back soon to talk about city revenues and expenditures, but wanted our viewers, as before the police chief and I talked, to get a quick report on what it would mean, assuming the bond issue is approved for this much-needed facility. And Karen, it's good to have you on the agenda today.
Thank you.
My guest now on the agenda is a man who has been a city employee longer than I have. He's better known in the city of Douglasville than I am, so he really needs no introduction, but I do want to welcome to this edition of On the Agenda our police chief, Joe Wisnant. Chief, it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you, Bill. Always glad to be back. Last time we did this, we had a good time, and I expect we will today too.
Right. We're keeping in mind all the discussions that have gone on down through the years on the needs to provide adequate facilities for the police department. I'm sure it's almost like a dream to realize that we're in a countdown to receive plans on a new building and to have a referendum in which the voters will make a decision as to whether we have funds to build this structure. So tell me about your feelings at this time.
Well, nobody pinch me and wake me up and tell me it is a dream, Bill, because you know, I've been the police chief 25 years, and this is probably the fourth or fifth time the police station has become a major topic, and every time the elected officials would agree to the needs, and they get it kind of on the front burner and then shove it back to the back burner and go from simmer to cold and just turn it off. So now, for the first time, we've got an elected official group, the mayor and council, that have made the firm commitment to not only me and my officers, but to the citizens to build a police station that the kind that we need not only now, but to take us into the future and the future challenges that we're going to experience policing in a community that's growing like Douglasville is.
And I think as we began this process some months ago, that it was a very good decision. It was made that let's don't build just to meet our current needs, and then 5, 6, 8 years down the road, let's see if we can come up with money to add an addition. That is, we looked at how do you get your best space utilization, that it made sense to look at a 20-year plan. And I know that's something that you were very interested in.
Yes, you know, and for the people, you know, it's an expensive project. I think you mentioned earlier in your program with Karen Callan, we're looking at probably $17 million, and I understand that's expensive. But I did go out and contracted with a company that does nothing but public safety buildings, and they did a needs assessment for us, keeping in mind 20 years, because I promised the mayor and council and you that this wouldn't be a project where we went to the citizens and asked for them to support us, then come back 5 or 6 years later and say, hey, I need more money. This is a one-shot deal. It's going to be good. The growth, the expansion, is what we're building it for, is good for 20 years, and I'm comfortable with that. And I think that when people see the plans and see the time and the effort that we put into it, I think they will agree with that, Bill.
Chief, I know that over the next few weeks, City TV will be presenting programs about this new project that we have underway. But also I know that you and members of your command staff are available to go to talk with various organizations, civic groups, neighborhood watch groups, civic clubs. If somebody wants to arrange for you or one of your command staff to come and meet with them, what do they need to do?
If they'll just call up at the Police Administration Building at 770-920-3021 and tell us who they are, when they need somebody, either myself or one of the command staff will be there. And we encourage people because we want to get it out to the public. We want the citizens to come, feel comfortable. We're not trying to run something in on them behind closed doors deal. We want to bring the drawings of the building, a rendering of what it's going to look like, and let them see it. And we want everybody to buy into it and then come and vote yes.
Okay, that's great. Well, I know that we'll need to have you back next month for a full half-hour session to talk about more detail, the plans and some other specifics. But As we begin to wrap up this session, at the moment, you've got to be in charge of a police force 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that's operating in 7 different buildings downtown. Tell us about what the problems you and your command staff have on a continuing basis as a result of having to function under the current conditions.
Well, inherently, just managing a law enforcement agency is pretty difficult because just by the nature of the job, you don't have everybody confined into an office. You know, obviously, we give them a car and we tell them to go out and do a job. Well, it's very difficult to manage under those situations at best. Then when you take the scenario that I don't ever have them all in one building where I can, even the supervisors and the mid-level managers of each division, I don't have day-to-day hourly contact with them. That makes it very difficult on me. When I need to go over to detectives and it's the middle of the winter and it's raining and it's 35 degrees, that makes it a little more difficult than walking down the hallway or down the stairs. I miss the day-to-day one-on-one contact with my line officers. You know, they don't get to know their chief maybe as well as they should, and I don't get to know them just simply by walking in the squad room and seeing an officer sitting there and walking up and saying, hey, what are you working on today? What you been doing? You know, what's going on? What do you know, everything all right? Can I help you? Those kind of things. I think that's very important as a police chief to have, or to be able to have that kind of contact. And notwithstanding that, Bill, none of the buildings we were in were ever designed to be police stations. So they have no security measures in them. In my building, for instance, someone could walk right through the front door and walk into the police chief's office. And you know, if they were mad about whatever, or do that in any building in the city, our not only police officers are in danger that way, but we have civilian personnel also that work in these offices that are not trained and not armed. And, you know, sometimes people come and they're not real happy with the police department for whatever reason, either just or unjust. But we have no security now, and it's just kind of, you know, like a recipe for a problem.
Right. I agree with you. And I know that you and your officers certainly appreciate what Mayor Thompson and members of the City Council have done to bring us to the point where we are now. And I know you also are getting a lot of contacts from individuals that say that we want to be supportive of this, we want to help spread the word. If you've got somebody that really wants to get involved with you, what do you need to do, and any other closing comments you want to make today?
Well, again, the phone number I gave at the admin building, 770-920-3021. Please call if you want to help. We are now in the midst of comprising a list of people in the community, everything from business leaders down to, you know, just good solid citizens, stay-at-home moms, whatever, that want to get out and tell the public that they support law enforcement in this community, and they think this is something that we need to do to increase effectiveness and efficiency within the police department. And we welcome you to call us and sit down with us, and we'll get you on board on what we need you to do. As I mentioned earlier, I want to come and talk to civic groups, homeowners associations, you know, like men's groups at churches, whatever. And it's not just, even though it'll be a city voters thing, you know, this really impacts everybody that comes into the city. So even though you can't vote and you live out in the county, we still want you to support what we're doing. And I welcome any questions. It's just something that's near and dear to me, and this is probably the best shot we're going to have at it coming up, Bill, and we want to make it you know, a good one too.
Right. Chief, appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. City Manager. Always do.
We'll have you back next month.
All right.
And to our viewers, we appreciate you being with us today, and we welcome you to come back and join us next month also. This is Bill Osborne on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Chan Weeks with Keep Douglasville Beautiful, and City TV is proud to present these drought survival tips.
I'm Randy Cooper, City of Douglasville arborist. Another drought tip is to avoid heavy pruning. Heavy pruning increases plant growth, which increases water usage. So let the plants kind of be this year. Don't prune heavy.
For more drought survival tips and information, please contact Keep Douglasville Beautiful, University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Office, and the Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority.
thank you for joining me today for On the Agenda. I hope this has given you a good opening view of the planned public safety municipal court building. We'll be talking more about this in the coming weeks. I hope if you are registered to vote that you will be sure that you do vote on this general obligation bond issue on September 16th. If you're not a registered voter, you need to get registered so you can help make the decision on whatever that decision may be. Also on September 16th, for those viewers who live in Ward 3, there will be a special election. We have a vacancy for the Post 1 position, and that position will be filled also during the special election. This is Bill Osborne on the Agenda.